Hello, everyone. It is Betsy from Heavens to Betsy Cakery. I have something really sweet for you tonight. I am celebrating St. Patrick's Day a few days early by sharing one of my little sweet fake bake treats with you. And this is I'm calling it the Leprechaun Lollipop. So it looks like this. So I have a little tutorial for you tonight. I'm going to go ahead and add my second camera so that you can see what I'm doing. And then we'll go ahead and get started. So let me grab this for you really quick and add that. And let me make it bigger. And there we go. Okay, so what you're going to need is, and I'll put a supply list below the tutorial so that you don't have to keep track during my presentation. So, okay, so what you're going to need is a mold that has, I'm using this mold with the 4 small size pretzels shape. So I need a silicone mold with the pretzel shapes. You're going to need sucker sticks. So I'm just using these. You can get these at Hobby Lobby. You can get them at Joann's. You can even order them online. So they're just sucker sticks. So you're going to need one of those. We are using the 10-minute resin. This is from the Amazing Casting Resin. Let me scoot it here for you. Looks like that. And it's the white resin. So I'll move that over to there. And what else do we need? Okay, and we're going to also use any color brown paint will work. I'm actually using the apple barrel and the nutmeg brown. So looks like this. And I'm also using a green paint. Any shade green that you like will work. Since we're doing St. Patrick's Day, we want to go with a green theme. This is actually one of the greens from my Heavenly Hues paint line that we created last year. So it's just a green color that we're going to use. And some Mod Podge in the gloss. It looks like this. Comes in the orange. It just says high gloss in the orange bottle. And we are using white caulking. And I like to use the Alex Fast Dry. Looks like this. I feel like my camera is a little close, but might be good for during the tutorial. So I'm going to leave it. So Alex Fast Dry. What else do we need? You're going to need a hot glue gun so that we can glue the sucker stick to the pretzels. And I think that's it. If I forget anything, I will mention it along the way. So let me go ahead and move some of these back out of the way. Oh, I did forget something. So we're also going to use, I have these little rainbow cabochons. They look like this. And I'm using, you can use any kind of like fake sprinkles, or I'm using the fake nonpareils that look like this. I don't want to dump them on the floor, but mine are 2 different shades of green and then a gold. So I think that's it now. We'll see. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to start with the 10-minute resin. Let me grab my gloves really quick. And I always recommend using gloves whenever you're using resin. My room is very well ventilated, but if yours is not, then you might want to consider using like a mask or a respirator if you're sensitive to using resins, or if you feel like you're not getting enough ventilation in your room as well. So I'm going to just grab a little plastic cup, and I'm using just a little popsicle stick to stir it up. And I'm also grabbing a additional mold. So whenever I'm using resin, whether it's the clear or the white, I always, I'm going to need my scale too. I like to measure it. So we use equal parts, but getting back to what I was trying to say. So I always like to have an additional mold near my project. So if I end up making more resin than I need for the current project, I don't want to waste the resin, and I'll just pour it into another mold. So I just grabbed one of my other molds, and I'm just going to have that sitting nearby just in case I need it. So, all right, so let's get started. I like to use a scale on this resin. It's A and B, and we use equal parts, and I just like to measure it. If you're not sure how much you need for your molds, what you can do is you can take your cup and you can put just some water in your cup, and then fill up your mold, and then pour that water back into your cup, and then weigh it or measure it so that you know how much you need. And then So like if it was 3 ounces, then you would just use 1.5 ounces of A, 1.5 ounces of B. But you definitely want to make sure that if you do that method, that little trick, that you dry your silicone mold completely before you go to pour your resin in it. So, okay, so I have my little scale here. I've zeroed it. I'm going to put my cup on it, and then I'm going to zero it out. And I've already made some of these, so I know how much I need. So let me go ahead and open these. So we've got A and B. Scooch that out of the way for a second. And I'm not, usually when I use resin, I'll pour A in one cup, B in another cup, and then combine them and stir them up. But because this is just the 10-minute resin, and I'm just gonna mix it up and then pour it immediately into my mold, I'm not gonna do that. Okay, so I'm just gonna weigh it, see how much I need. And some come out faster than others, so you just want to be careful when you're pouring. And also have like a paper towel handy. That's really helpful. Okay. And let me measure. Okay. And do not have fans on when you're doing this. Otherwise it's gonna the fan is gonna take your resin and want to blow it out of your cup. All right. Okay. So let me scooch that over to here. And I'm done with my scale, so we can move that out of the way. I've got Teddy Bear sleeping down here beside me, so she's hanging out with me tonight. I'm just going to stir it, and I'm going to stir it all in one direction. Okay, it's already starting to turn white. So instead of pouring it into my mold, I'm using my popsicle stick, and I'm just going to kind of drizzle it in to make sure that it fills up completely. You want your mold to be level. You don't want to put more resin in the mold so that it expands past that, so that when it dries, it's flat on top. That's what we're looking for. This 10-minute resin does cure in 10 minutes, but the work time is only like a minute or two. So when you're using it, make sure you have all of your supplies and everything ready in advance before you add the two together, because once you add A to B, it causes a chemical reaction, and then it starts to set up. So you just want to make sure that your mold is ready and that you have, all your supplies are there, so that you're not taking time to try to gather them while it's setting up, because you will turn around and this will set up really fast, faster than you're expecting. Okay, so you could pour this in your mold. I just prefer to use my popsicle stick. It just helps me make sure that it gets down in all those little nooks and crannies. And I just feel like I have more control using it. And then, like I said, I have an extra mold if I have any extra, just so that we're not wasting it. And right now I see I'm going to have to add a little bit more to a couple of these before it starts to set up. So I don't think I need my extra mold tonight, which is awesome. I like when that happens. All right, almost there. Just want to make sure you don't want it to go below, for this project anyway, you don't want it to go too far below the surface, so that your pretzels, you want them to be flat once they cure and you pull them out of the molds. You don't want it to have like any indentations. So yay, this worked out really well. I'm not going to tell you the exact measurements because I don't know what mold you have, and you really want to, like I said, we don't want to waste any resin, so you want to try to make the amount that's going to fit into yours. Okay, so let me, I don't have my trash can in here. I'm going to set this over here. Alrighty, okay. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in my hot glue gun. So let me grab that really quick. Got the cord right here. There we go. Okay, and then move my mouse to the side. So what I like to use, whenever I'm using my hot glue gun, I had a cheese tray that was this marble slab, and it had a glass dome that got broke. And so I tossed that, but I saved the piece of marble, and I use this for my hot glue gun, so that when I turn the hot glue gun on and it starts to heat up and drips, it'll drip onto this piece of marble, and then later I can just come in and peel it off, and it just makes it really easy. So okay, so I'm going to scooch this out of the way, and we're gonna let that heat up. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is once this cures, and it'll cure before the tutorial's done, and I'll show you, how easy it is to pull it out of the molds. But once it's cured, they look like this. And we're going to, even though there's 4, we're going to be using 3 for this particular Leprechaun Lollipop. And let me show you again. Let me hold it down here for you. It's kind of hard to see. There we go. I'm going to hold it up here a little bit better. Okay. But anyway, so once you pull your pretzels out of the mold, they look like this. And I'm going to leave my gloves on because I'm going to paint them. So they just look like this. So let me grab a piece of parchment. Here we go. And I'm going to scooch those over there. All right, so I'm just going to use a piece of parchment to not only paint my pretzels, but when I go to glue them up on the sucker stick, and then when I decorate with the icing, I'm going to use it to set it on. So, all right, so I'm using the apple barrel and the nutmeg brown shade. There we go. And I'm just going to pour some in this little cup. I don't need a lot. And then I'm going to I'm using a paintbrush with a wider bristle. Here, I'll turn it upside down so you can see it like this. Because when I'm painting it, I want to make sure that I get all inside of the pretzel so that we don't see any white. That's the idea. You don't want to see any white. I'm also going to just paint the top of it. And then when it dries, I'll come back and paint the bottom so that it has a chance to completely dry. So I think you can see me. All right, so I'm just going to paint this, and I'm using my gloves because I'm messy. You guys know that. Okay, so I don't mind if I get it all over my gloves. It's a little easier than getting it all over my hands. Okay, so I'm just going to paint it all on the top surface. I'm going to get it down inside those, the little sections of the pretzel. And then I'm just going to set it here to dry on my parchment. And then I'm going to go for the next one. Okay. All right. So when you're doing this, let it dry completely before you paint the other side. And then also what I found with using this resin and it being like a plastic smooth, kind of a slick surface, sometimes your paint doesn't want to adhere with like a complete coverage. So you may, depending on how yours looks, you may want to come back in and do a second coat to make sure that yours are coated. Because as you can see from my finished one, we are going to have some of that pretzel showing through, like the backside is showing through, and then a little bit in between where the holes are. I just really wanted it to be really easy for people to look at it and know that it was made with the little mini pretzels. Whereas if you decided to not paint your pretzels brown and then you just wanted to coat the entire thing in green icing, which you could, I just thought it was a little, it wasn't as easy to tell that you used pretzels. So, okay. And if you don't have the 10-minute resin and you don't want to use it, you can always use plaster of Paris in your mold as well to make this project. If you do use plaster of Paris, then what I would recommend is you use 2 parts plaster of Paris to 1 part water, and yep, and then just thoroughly let that dry. Before you paint that. Plaster of Paris tends to be absorbent and it really soaks up the paint. So you definitely would want to do probably more than 1 coat in order to make sure it's completely covered. Plus, if you're using plaster of Paris instead of this 10-minute resin, you want to make sure and seal them. Otherwise, if you don't, the paint might not be enough, like on the backside, and we don't want moisture to get in later on. So, okay, I just realized I do not have, I don't have my mason jar filled with water, but that's okay. I'm going to turn this inside out so that when we're done with the tutorial, I'll remind myself to go and put that in water so that the paint doesn't dry on it. So, okay, so I don't need this now, so I'll make it rid of that one also. Okay, so we've got the 3 pretzels painted, and I actually have 3 that are done, and they look like this. And like I said, I'm using this shade of brown paint, but you can use any shade of brown that you like. You don't have to use exactly the same color. This is just what I did. So, okay, so the next thing we're going to do, we have our hot glue gun going, and I'm going to we're going to line them up so that it makes this shape. Let me hold it this way for you. It might be a little easier. Like this. This is the shape that we're going for. And I'm just going to set them on my parchment paper in that shape. So you want like the round, kind of like bunny ears, but not. You want them at the top and on the side sticking out. And then I'm going to put my sucker stick in between them. And I'm just going to line it up to make sure. Here, I'm actually going to scoot this over a little bit. I'm going to line it up to make sure all of my pretzels are touching before I add the hot glue to adhere them together. So I just put them together, make sure that my sucker stick is straight. I want to make sure that the top pretzel, here I'm going to hold it down this way. I want to make sure the top pretzel is kind of not level, but in the, what am I trying to say? So when you put them all together, I want to make sure that all the loops kind of are consistent. I'm going to let Teddy out really quick. She's crying. She hears somebody. Excuse baby. There she goes. All righty. Okay, so I've got these lined up, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I've got my hot glue gun, and I'm going to leave the pretzels on my parchment, and I'm going to move the sucker stick without moving those, and I'm going to fill that little cavity with the hot glue, and then I'm going to immediately put the sucker stick back in. So let me do that. So we can just make like a line of glue, and then that back on my marble. I'm going to stick the sucker stick in it and press it down, and then I'm going to push my little pretzels together so that they stick to that sucker stick. There we go. All right, that looks good, and I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to let this dry, and then we're going to move on to the next step. So the next step is, it looks like this, and I already have one ready for you. So we've already, I don't know why my camera, I think my camera's just not in the right place. Anyway, I'll do it for you this way. So the, let me hold it up to you this way. So you'll see we've got the 3 pretzels, and they're glued to the sucker stick. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to mix up our green icing. So let me grab a cup. Here we go. And I'm going to grab another popsicle stick, and I'm going to start with my Mod Podge. So I'm just going to pour, and this I'm not measuring, I'm just going to pour some in my cup. So I'm going to start with the Mod Podge. Let me shake this up really quick. And if you guys have any questions, please put them below the tutorial and the video, and I will come back in, and I'll get a notification, and I'll come back in and I can answer your questions. So, all right. So just a little bit of Mod Podge. I'm going to use my green paint, and I'm going to use my popsicle stick, and I'm going to mix the paint into the Mod Podge before I add the white caulking. So I'm going to just put like a couple scoops, 2 scoops, 2 scoops of green paint, and then I'm going to stir that up. So we're going to combine that. I really like this color. Like I said, use any color green that you want, that you like. So here's what mine looks like. All right, and then I'm going to add some of the white caulking. All right, so I'm just going to put, to start, I'm going to put about a quarter size in here, and like about the size of a quarter. And then I'm going to stir that up. And when I first put it in, it's a little chunky, and yours may be too. So if it is, just keep stirring it until it's not, until you get that smooth consistency again. And I'll show you what I mean. Can you see it's kind of chunky? Okay, so I'm going to just keep stirring until it's smooth, just like that. And there is some bubbles, but they do, they tend to not stay there. Like, so don't worry if yours gets bubbles. Okay. All right. All right. I think I like this consistency. Okay, so then this one is drying. This one is ready to go. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to leave mine on the parchment paper when I cover it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take I'm going to keep using the popsicle stick, and I'm going to take it and I'm just going to start spreading that icing, which is what this is, on top of we're calling it a leprechaun lollipop. So I'm going to start spreading it on top of my lollipop, just like this. And I'm only putting mine like on the top of the pretzel because I want to still be able to see. Let me hold on to this. I still want to see that pretzel like inside of the pretzel, the little loops. Is that what you call them? Loops? I don't know if that sounds right. Anyway, yeah, so I'm going to put, just kind of put it all on top. Just like that. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. The camera's not in the best angle. I apologize. Okay. So I'm just going to put this on here just like that. And if it drips down behind it, that's fine. I'm going to leave it. Let me just get this other side of the pretzel. And I'm not going to pick it up because it is still very wet from the icing. But the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the little rainbow cabochon. Excuse me. And then also the little, if you want to use sprinkles, you can use sprinkles. I'm using like the little fake nonpareils, and they're in two different shades of green, like a light green and a dark green, and then the gold, which I think really complements this. So, okay. So there we go. Let me scooch that off to the side. And then I'm going to hold it up for just a second and then show you. There we go, what it looks like. And then I'm going to place it back down. Usually when I do my, like my sprinkles, I like to do a paper plate underneath of my project. And then anything, any sprinkles that fall on there, I can put them back into my container. But today, because this is such wet icing, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to put it on my parchment paper. And then when it dries, I'll be able to pick up any extras and put them back in my container. So, okay, so we are using this little, I don't want to drop it, this little rainbow. And I'm just going to stick it. I'm going to look at where I placed this one. I'm just going to set it right in the middle. And then leave it right there. And that icing, it will dry and it will, here I got paint on that one. I'm going to switch real quick. When it dries, that icing will cause it to adhere to our lollipops. So, okay, I got a little bit of paint on me. That's okay. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. And then I'm going to come in with my sprinkles, and I'm just going to put them, I'm just going to sprinkle them all over the icing. And like I said, I'm not worried about where they go. Once it dries, and I can pick it up off of my parchment paper, then I'll just shake them back into my bowl, and then I'll put it back into my sprinkle container. So, all right, so I have just a few more to finish this one, and then I will show you the finished one, and then that's it. This is like a really quick, short tutorial. Usually can get it done in about 20 minutes, one of them. Well, I shouldn't say that. It does take time for you to do the your mold with your pretzels. But if you've done that in advance and you have all your stuff and you're just assembling them, it won't take you very long. But anyway, this is really cute. So for those of you that celebrate St. Patrick's Day, or you decorate with St. Patrick's Day theme, we just finished up in my private group, Tiered Tray Tutorials, this month, or last month, February, we did Lucky Charms theme, and it was all about St. Patrick's Day. Fake Bakes and Decor, which is still behind me. So if you're interested in learning more about my private group and joining that, just put a comment, put a message below in the comments below and let me know. And yeah, and then I'll reach back out to you. So, okay, so that's it. I'm going to let that dry. I will show you this one again. This is our finished. I'm going to hold it down here. This is our finished Leprechaun Lollipop is what I'm calling it. So I'm going to hold it up here for you. And there you go. So let me grab my mouse, and then we'll go back to just the one screen, and then there you go. So anyway, thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you make this, I'd love for you to tag me so that I can come in and see what you made. I always love it when you guys share your fake bakes and your fun creations with me as well. So, and especially if you use it on a tiered tray or any of your St. Patrick's Day decor to celebrate the holiday. So anyway, happy St. Patrick's Day a few days early. I thought I'd get this out to you. So if you did want to make it and add it to your decor before the holiday, it would be ready for you. So, all right. Well, thanks again for popping in with me, and I hope you guys had a good night. I hope you enjoyed this, and until next time, take care. Thanks, everyone. Good night.